While I buried my 11-year-old alone, my parents celebrated my sister's engagement at a restaurant. Then Mom texted, "Stop being dramatic. Give $120,000 to buy an apartment for Regina. They wanted to take my dad's son's trust fund." Well, let's go. My name is Scarlett, and I'm 37 years old. I work as a senior financial analyst at a large investment company, making around $95,000 a year. I have an 11-year-old son named Jake, and a younger sister, Regina, who's 30. My parents are in their 60s, and we've always had a good relationship as a family. When Jake was 6 and I divorced his father, Mark, my family really helped out. They watched Jake when I worked late, and Regina would come over to help with homework. Mark and I kept things civil. He pays child support and takes Jake every other weekend. I've always tried to help my family back. I pay $1,800 monthly toward my parents' mortgage and give Regina $800 for her apartment rent. When she went back to college for her master's degree, I helped with the $15,000 tuition. They're my family, and that's what families do for each other. Regina has been dating this guy David for 2 years now. Things are serious between them. His parents are wealthy Europeans who visit the States for business. My parents absolutely adore David and spend a lot of time with Regina planning their future together. About 3 months ago, Jake started getting tired all the time. He'd always been this energetic kid who never sat still, but suddenly he was spending afternoons on the couch. Then came the bruises that wouldn't heal properly and the loss of appetite. I took him to Dr. Martinez, our pediatrician, who ran blood work and said the results would be back in a few days. The call came while I was at work on Tuesday afternoon. "Miss Thompson, can you come in today to discuss Jake's test results?" Dr. Martinez asked. I left work immediately. Dr. Martinez's face was serious when I arrived. "Jake's blood work shows concerning abnormalities," he said directly. "His white blood cell count is extremely elevated. We need to rule out leukemia. I've called Children's Hospital. They can see you tomorrow." The word hit me like a truck. Leukemia. My 11-year-old might have cancer. I picked up Jake from school, acting normal, while my world crumbled inside. That night, after he went to bed, I called Mark and told him everything. He came over immediately, went completely pale when I explained what the doctor had said. I also called my parents and Regina to let them know what was happening. Mom just said, "Oh, honey, I'm sure it's nothing serious. Kids get sick all the time." Dad mumbled something about staying positive. Regina was distracted. I could hear David talking in the background about dinner reservations. Their reactions felt detached, almost like I was telling them about someone else's child. I didn't blame them, though. Regina was completely wrapped up in her relationship with David, and my parents were so focused on her happiness and future engagement that everything else seemed secondary. But it still stung. This was about Jake's life and health. The next day, we got the confirmation. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Aggressive. Jake needed to be admitted to the hospital immediately to start treatment. "We're going to fight this," Mark said, holding my hand in the hospital waiting room. "Whatever it takes." Jake was admitted that same day. The doctors started him on chemotherapy right away, along with other treatments I couldn't even pronounce. The hospital became our second home. I visited every day after work, spending evenings reading to Jake or just sitting with him when he felt too sick to talk. Mark came by regularly too, usually on weekends or after his work hours. Jake was brave through it all. He complained sometimes about feeling nauseous or tired, but he never asked why this was happening to him. The nurses loved him because he always said thank you, even when they had to stick needles in his arm. "The treatment is going as well as can be expected," Dr. Chen, his oncologist, told us after the first month. "Jake is responding, but we need to stay vigilant. This type of leukemia can be unpredictable." We settled into a routine, hospital visits, treatment schedules, trying to maintain some normalcy. My parents called occasionally to ask how Jake was doing, but their conversations always seemed to drift back to Regina's relationship updates or David's family's latest visit. For 12 weeks we managed. Jake had good days and bad days, but he was fighting. Mark and I took turns staying overnight when Jake had particularly rough treatment sessions. We became a team again, united by our love for our son and our determination to get him through this. Then everything changed. I was at work on a Thursday morning reviewing portfolio analyses when my phone rang. Children's Hospital. "Miss Thompson, you need to come to the hospital right away," the nurse said. Her voice was different, urgent, strained. "What's wrong? Is Jake okay?" "Just please come as quickly as you can. Dr. Chen will explain everything when you arrive." The drive to the hospital felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept telling myself it was probably just a setback, maybe an infection or a reaction to the medication. These things happen during cancer treatment. When I arrived at the hospital, Dr. Chen was waiting for me with an expression that told me everything I didn't want to know. "Miss Thompson, please come with me," he said, leading me to a consultation room. "Where's Jake? Is he okay?" He sat across from me and spoke quietly. "Jake's condition has deteriorated significantly. His body isn't responding to treatment anymore, and his organs are starting to fail. I'm so sorry, but we've done everything we can. It's a matter of hours." The words didn't make sense. "There has to be something else you can try." "I wish there was. Would you like me to call Jake's father?" I nodded, unable to speak. Mark arrived within 30 minutes, and we went straight to Jake's room. We sat with our son, reading to him and holding his hands. Jake was brave until the end, telling us he loved us one last time before he passed away at 6:47 p.m. I couldn't cry. I couldn't move. I just sat there holding his hand, unable to process that my 11-year-old son was gone. Mark tried calling my parents and Regina to tell them Jake had died. My mother said they were at dinner and couldn't talk about sad things right now. Regina answered, but said she couldn't deal with this tonight. The next day, I had to start organizing Jake's funeral. I'd never planned a funeral before, especially not for my own child. Mark helped me with everything: choosing the casket, picking out flowers, writing the obituary. We worked together like we used to when we were married, united in our grief and love for Jake. Mark handled most of the phone calls because I couldn't speak without breaking down. He called Jake's school to let them know, contacted his softball team, and reached out to our extended family members. The day after Jake died, my phone finally rang. "Mom, Scarlett, honey, I'm so sorry for your loss," she said in that tone people use when they're trying to sound sympathetic, but are really just going through the motions. "Your father and I feel terrible about Jake." "Thank you," I said, expecting her to ask about funeral arrangements or offer to help. "Now, I need to talk to you about the arrangements. I'm afraid your father and I won't be able to help you with the funeral planning. We have a very important event coming up. Regina's engagement party is this weekend." I stared at my phone. "Mom, Jake just died yesterday." "I know, sweetie, and we're heartbroken, but life has to go on. Regina has been planning this for months, and David's parents are only here from Europe for 1 week. This is the only time they can do the engagement ceremony." "You could reschedule it," I said, my voice getting stronger. "Regina could postpone it a few weeks. My son just died." "Absolutely not," Mom snapped, her sympathetic tone disappearing completely. "Regina and David can't wait. David's parents are flying back to London next week, and they won't be back until the wedding next year. This is Regina's moment. Scarlett, don't be selfish." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Selfish. My child is dead, and you think I'm being selfish? "You need to understand that Regina's happiness is important too. She's been waiting for this her whole life." "Jake's funeral is in 2 days," I said quietly. "Friday at 2 p.m. I expect you and Dad and Regina to be there." "We'll see what we can do," Mom said. I hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't want to argue anymore. My son was dead, and I had to bury him. Friday arrived, gray and cold. Mark picked me up that morning because I didn't trust myself to drive. The funeral home was filled with people: Mark's parents and his siblings, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, even some of Jake's teachers from school and kids from his class. "Jake was loved by so many people," Mark's mother said, hugging me. "Look at all these people who came to honor him." I looked around the room and realized who wasn't there. No sign of my parents or Regina. My Aunt Linda came up to me during the service. "Scarlett, honey, where are your parents and Regina?" "I don't know," I admitted. "They said they might not be able to make it." Aunt Linda's face went dark. "What do you mean they might not be able to make it? Their grandson just died." "Can you call them?" I asked. "I can't deal with this right now." Aunt Linda stepped outside with her phone. I watched through the window as she made the call. Her expression changed from confusion to shock to complete outrage. She came back inside and pulled me aside. "Scarlett, I just called your mother," she said quietly, her voice shaking with anger. "What did she say?" "They're at Regina's engagement party right now, at some fancy restaurant downtown, celebrating while we're here burying Jake." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "They're in the restaurant today. During Jake's funeral, your mother said they couldn't miss it because David's parents are leaving tomorrow. She actually said that to me. I've never been so disgusted in my life." I looked around at all the people who had come to say goodbye to Jake, his teachers, his friends' parents, my extended family, Mark's entire family, everyone except my own parents and sister. I can't make a scene here, I whispered to Aunt Linda, not at Jake's funeral. You're a better person than I am, she said, because I want to drive over there and drag them here myself. The service was beautiful, despite everything. Jake's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, talked about how he always helped other kids with their math homework. His baseball coach shared a story about Jake's determination during practice. Mark and I both spoke about our amazing son and how much joy he brought to our lives. But the whole time, I kept looking toward the back of the room, hoping my parents would walk in late, hoping Regina would realize where she should be. They never came. After we buried Jake, people came back to my house for food and to share more memories. Mark's family stayed close to me, making sure I ate something and had people to talk to. My aunts and uncles were furious about my parents' absence, whispering angrily in the kitchen. I can't believe they chose an engagement party over their grandson's funeral, I heard Uncle Robert say. That's not the family I thought I knew. Neither did I. After everyone left the house following Jake's funeral, I sat in my quiet house. The silence was overwhelming. No video games beeping, no cartoons on TV, no Jake calling from upstairs asking for help with homework. Just empty, horrible silence. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. My phone had been buzzing all evening with condolence messages from friends, coworkers, and extended family members. I hadn't looked at any of them yet. Then my phone buzzed with a text message from Mom. Stop being dramatic. It's better to give $120,000 to buy an apartment for Regina. I read the message 3 times before it sank in. They were talking about Jake's trust fund. When Jake was born, Mark and I had set up a trust fund for his future. We were both making good money at the time and wanted to make sure Jake would have money for college and maybe a down payment on a house when he graduated. Over 11 years, we'd put away $120,000. Both sets of grandparents knew about the account. I stared at that text message for a long time. They couldn't be bothered to come to Jake's funeral because they were celebrating Regina's engagement, but they had no problem demanding his money the same day we buried him. I thought about everything I'd done for my family over the years. The $1,800 monthly mortgage payments for my parents, the $800 monthly rent payments for Regina, the $15,000 for Regina's master's degree, all the times I'd helped them without being asked, without expecting anything in return except basic family support when I needed it. And when I needed them most, when my son was dying, when I was planning his funeral, when I was burying him, they were nowhere to be found. But they sure knew how to ask for money. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I opened my banking app on my phone. I found the automatic transfers I'd set up years ago. $1,800 to my parents on the 1st of every month, $800 to Regina on the 15th. I canceled both of them. Then I took screenshots of the cancellation confirmations and sent them to my parents and Regina in a group text. No words, just the screenshots. I turned off my phone and went to bed. I woke up the next morning to 47 missed calls and dozens of text messages. I made coffee before looking at any of them. The messages started around 11 p.m. the night before, about 30 minutes after I had sent the screenshots. From Dad. Scarlett, what is this? Why did you cancel the transfers? From Mom. You can't do this to us. We need that money for the mortgage. From Regina. Are you kidding me right now? I can't afford rent without your help. Then they got nastier. From Mom. You're being cruel and selfish. We're your family. From Regina. This is so typical of you. You think because something bad happened to you, everyone else has to suffer. From Dad. Call us back right now. We need to talk about this. I didn't respond to any of the messages. I had taken the week off work for bereavement leave. So I spent the morning going through Jake's room, deciding what to donate to charity. His clothes, his toys, his books. Other kids could use them. At noon, there was loud knocking at my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents standing on my porch. Mom was holding what looked like a prepared speech in her hand. I knew this conversation was inevitable. I opened the door. How could you do this to us? Mom started shouting before she was even inside. How could you cut off our money like that? We depend on those payments. Dad pushed past me into my living room. This is completely unacceptable, Scarlett. We raised you better than this. You didn't come to Jake's funeral, I said quietly. Of course, we're sad about Jake, Dad said. But life goes on. People die, Scarlett. You can't punish everyone else because you're grieving. You were at Regina's engagement party during his funeral. Regina's happiness matters too, Mom said. She only gets engaged once. David's parents came all the way from London for this. We couldn't disappoint them. But you could disappoint me. You're being dramatic, Dad said. Jake was sick. We knew this might happen. Regina's engagement is a celebration of life and new beginnings. I stared at him. Jake was your grandson. And Regina is our daughter, Mom shot back. She's alive. She's getting married. She has her whole future ahead of her. We can't drop everything for someone who's already gone. Get out of my house, I said. They both looked shocked. Scarlett, don't be ridiculous, Mom said. We need to work this out. We need that money. I said, get out. I will never forgive you for not coming to Jake's funeral and then demanding his trust fund money. We didn't demand anything, Dad said. We just suggested that since Jake doesn't need college money anymore, it would make sense to help Regina with her apartment. On the day of his funeral, I said. You suggested it on the day of his funeral. They both went pale. We didn't mean it like that, Mom said quickly. We were just thinking practically. Get out of my house right now or I'm calling the police. They finally left, but I could hear them arguing on my front porch about how unreasonable I was being. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Regina. I knew I needed to have this conversation with her, too. I answered. What the hell is wrong with you? Regina screamed before I could say hello. How could you cut off my rent money? I can't afford this apartment without your help. You didn't come to Jake's funeral. I was at my engagement party. It was planned for months. David's parents flew here specifically for it. Jake was your nephew, and I'm sorry he died, but I can't put my life on hold because of it. You're just jealous that I'm young and have everything ahead of me while you lost your kid and now you have nothing, so you're trying to ruin my happiness. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I blocked my parents' numbers too. Over the next 2 weeks, they tried to contact me multiple times. They showed up at my office, but I told security not to let them up. They sent emails that I deleted without reading. They even had other family members try to call me on their behalf. But I was done. My extended family, my aunts, uncles, and cousins were on my side. They were horrified by my parents' and Regina's behavior. Several of them told me they'd already declined invitations to Regina's upcoming wedding. What they did was unforgivable, Aunt Linda told me. Missing Jake's funeral for a party, demanding his money, that's not family behavior. She was right. Whatever I thought I had with my parents and Regina wasn't really family. Real family shows up when someone dies. Real family doesn't demand dead children's money. Real family doesn't call you jealous for grieving. 6 months have passed since Jake died. The first few months were the hardest. I went back to work after my bereavement leave, but everything felt different. My coworkers were supportive, but I could see the pity in their eyes. The woman who lost her child. The woman whose family abandoned her in her darkest hour. My extended family made sure I wasn't completely alone. Aunt Linda called me every week, and my cousins invited me to family gatherings. They made it clear that my parents and Regina weren't welcome at these events anymore. I found out through my cousin Sarah that Regina's wedding had been a disaster. Most of our extended family refused to attend, and even some of David's family was uncomfortable after hearing what happened. The wedding was small and awkward, with barely 20 people there. Regina kept asking where everyone was, Sarah told me. Your mom tried to explain that people were just busy, but everyone knew the real reason. I felt a small satisfaction hearing that, but mostly I just felt empty. My family was gone, my son was gone, and I was starting over at 37. The one unexpected bright spot was Mark. We started spending more time together. Not dating exactly, but supporting each other through the grief. We'd visit Jake's grave together, share memories, and talk about how much we missed him. I keep thinking about that camping trip when he was 8, Mark said one evening as we sat in my living room looking through photo albums. Remember how convinced he was that he saw Bigfoot? He drew pictures of it for weeks afterward. I laughed. The first real laugh I'd had in months. He wanted to go back and set up cameras to prove it was real. 3 months ago, Mark asked if he could move back in. Not romantically, he clarified, but just to be together while we grieved. We understand each other right now in a way nobody else can, he said. Maybe it would help if we weren't going through this alone. I agreed. It did help. Having someone else in the house who missed Jake as much as I did made the silence less overwhelming. Mark cooked dinner sometimes, and I handled the laundry. We fell into an easy routine that felt comfortable without being romantic. My therapist thinks it's healthy. You're both processing the same loss, Dr. Williams told me. Having that shared understanding can be healing. Are we avoiding dealing with our grief by being together? Are you talking about Jake? Are you supporting each other? Are you both functioning in your daily lives? Yes to all of that? Then you're not avoiding anything. You're healing together. Last week, Mark brought up the possibility of us trying to have another child together someday. I'm not saying now, he said quickly when he saw my face. I'm just saying maybe in the future when we've healed more. Jake would always be our first child, but maybe we could give him a little brother or sister. I don't know if I can go through pregnancy and childbirth again, I admitted. What if something happens? What if I lose another child? We don't have to decide anything now. I just wanted you to know that if you ever want that, I'd want it too. I'm not ready to think about having another baby yet. Maybe I never will be, but it means something that Mark brought it up, that he sees a future where we might be happy again. Work has been a good distraction. I got promoted to senior analyst last month, partly because I threw myself into projects to avoid thinking about everything else. My boss knows what I've been through and has been incredibly supportive. I still have bad days. Days when I see a kid Jake's age at the grocery store and have to leave my cart and go home. Days when I find one of his drawings tucked in a book and cry for hours. Days when I'm angry at God, or the universe, or just the unfairness of everything. But I also have good days now. Days when I can think about Jake and smile instead of cry. Days when Mark and I can talk about him without falling apart. Days when I feel like maybe I can build something new from what's left of my life. My parents and Regina have tried to contact me a few times over the past 6 months. They sent a card on what would have been Jake's 12th birthday. They tried to show up at my office again around Christmas. Regina sent an email saying she was sorry for what she said and wanted to reconcile. I deleted the email without reading the whole thing. I threw away the card. I told security to call the police if they showed up again. Some people think I'm being too harsh. A coworker told me that family is family, and I should forgive them eventually. But I'm not interested in forgiveness right now. Maybe someday I'll get there, but not anytime soon. They had their chance to be my family when I needed them most, and they chose Regina's engagement party instead. I have a new family now, Mark. My extended relatives who stood by me, my close friends, my therapist, even some of Jake's teachers who still check on me. It's smaller than what I had before, but it's real. Jake would be 12 now if he were still alive. He'd probably be playing middle school sports and complaining about homework. I'll never stop missing him or wishing he was here, but I'm learning to live with that loss without letting it destroy what's left of my life. Mark and I haven't officially gotten back together, but we're talking about it. We're taking things slow, making sure we're healing for the right reasons, and not just clinging to each other because we're both broken. Maybe we can be happy again someday, Mark said last night as we sat on the couch watching a movie Jake would have hated. Maybe we can, I agreed. I don't know what my future looks like. I don't know if Mark and I will work out long term, or if I'll ever want another child, or if I'll ever speak to my parents and Regina again. But I know I'm stronger than I thought I was. I know I can survive losing everything and still build something new. And I know that the family you choose is sometimes more important than the family you're born into.